see so many people who've been part of our school for so long. Really is terrific. Thank you for coming. And a very, very warm welcome, of course, to our very, very special guest, who I think need another round of applause. It's going to be very special this morning because we're going to have 3 assemblies all in one. And I think we're going to start with a nice song. It's in every one of us.
One assembly for each of the very smart and posh, lovely ladies that are here today. We're saying goodbye to. We also have a very smart and posh and handsome gentleman, Mr. Potter, our chairman of government. And he's going to say a little bit about each of these ladies in turn. Now we're going to take it in order, and the order is Mrs. Jenks first of all. So you get yourselves ever so comfortable. Mr. Potter is going to tell you a little bit about Mrs. Jenks. He knows it all because he has been reading the book you all know from Mrs. Jenks. Do you remember when you were asked about the book?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Potter.
Very nice to see you all. Such a lovely day. You're all familiar with these books, aren't you? People like me, we come to events like this to say thank you to the lovely ladies and we wonder what we might actually say in detail. Well, you don't have to wonder very long. Because all you have to do is take a book like this and open it, and everything comes spilling out. Happy memories, trips, blood, everything is in here. Things that children remember, they're all in here. And I could open this book at any page, and the sentiment which you'd find in there would be the sentiment that we all, us grown-ups, would say to these three people, and Mrs. Jenks in particular. And I've just stuck 3 little bits of paper in at 3 pages. But every so often, the governors wonder about whether school trips are a good thing. And I just thought I'd put a little plug in here, because you all know that sometimes school trips go a little bit wrong occasionally. But when you look in these books, it's school trips, even though they're only to Rees Heath, the cinema, the library, the swimming baths. These are the things that children remember and treasure. And if anything's brought home to me, the benefit of school trips, it's reading these books this morning. Mrs. Jenks. I like reading with Mrs. Jenks and doing my pattern picture. It was fun when we made cherry biscuits and my family thought they were very tasty. When we went to the library, we looked at exciting books. Now then, what better message could a teacher have for encouraging children to read? Because the governors talk about how children tend to play with computers and watch the television a little bit too much. But isn't it nice that Mrs. Jenks encourages children to do one of the most enjoyable things that childhood has to offer, and that is discovering new things. Lovely. Bye-bye, Mrs. Jenks. Quite a long letter, but it finishes. I was in your swimming group, and you told me not to be scared of the water, and now I can swim. Lovely. Dear Mrs. Jenks, why do you have to go? Who will clean away our red blood and kindly... Tell you, it's all in here. And kindly give us our needed medicine. You're so kind and helpful. You're kind. How can we let you go? I don't have to say anything, do I? It's all there. Mrs. Jenks, who's crying pitifully here. I tell you, it gives me to echo the sentiment expressed in there. I share them all happy.
But there's more. Because, you know, many of you have brought your pennies and your 10 pences and your 20p's and your £5 notes and your £10 notes, and we've put them all together, and we have bought something from Mrs. Jenks to take home with her, and I am so glad that her family and her husband are here today, because there's a little bit of work for them to do. You mustn't do it, you've got to make them do it, because it's got to be put together. Now, we thought, what will Mrs. Jenks need when she has retired? Because she is so busy, and on a personal note, can I just say, there are many people who do not realise, but I know, because I'm the one who often asks her, how many things Mrs. Jenks does so quietly behind the scenes. How often she's there getting the refreshments ready for the governor's meeting, getting things ready for when visitors come to the school. And how many of you have ever had a cut knee or grazed arm or something like that, and you've gone to Mrs. Jenks and she's given you first aid? Put your hand up if it still works. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Me as well. Look at you all. And she never makes a fuss, does she? She's always there and she's so caring. Right, put your hands down. So we thought, Mrs. Jenks now ought to be able to sit in the sun, in her garden, in the shade, in the sun, wherever she wants to sit, but to relax, and that Mr. Jenks can wait on her. So we have got we will show you what we've got. Can you bring it in? It takes a lot of strong people to live this. No, it's not a flower vase.
Chad, sit down. Vicky and Samantha. Laura, Samantha, sit down.
There is a seat for Mr. Jenks as well, because there's 2 seats in there and a little table between that you can put the pink champagne on, put your feet up and take it easy. Shall we ask Mrs. Jenks if she will say a little something to us?
Yeah. Laura, sit.
Because I would probably cry. Well, I'm not going to cry. It's a happy day, really. What I'm going to say is, this is the first time in 13.5 years I've actually stood here, Miss Shirley. I am much happier, as you say, being at the back and nipping out to put the kettle on. So in 13.5 years I've never actually stood in front of a assembly. So on my last day, this is a first. Well, it's not my last day.
Would you like to leave us in the hymn?
No, thank you. This is a first for me, and I hope it will be the first of a lot of new things. I shall have time to do. Thank you very much.
Probably only been absent from her duties 1 or 2 days in the whole of that time. And that just shows you what sort of person she is. Her, and give her the first aid if she needs it. We're so pleased that Mr. Jenks and members of Mr. Jenks' family are here today. When you all go out to play, you can have another play later on, then they're going to go into the stump hall. But we have something even a little bit more special. Should we give her one last big clap? And now we come to the lady who always keeps me in order. And they are wondering which of the 2 it is. So Mrs. White knows. And I think Mrs. White has been at this school probably more years than she cares to remember. Hands up, and this is mums and dads and everyone else as well, if you've ever been in Mrs. White's class. Well, look at that. There's a mum at the back. All right, will you put your hands down? Shh. Put your hands down now. Just before we hand over to Mr. Potter, who's going to say a little bit about Mrs. White and give her This Is Your Life book, I'm going to ask Mrs. White how many years she has taught in this school. How many years is it? 22 years. classes, and she's never had a naughty boy yet. Pardon? You say she's got one now? Well, sometimes Mrs. White can be quite a naughty girl, but today she's been very, very good. And we're going to ask if Mr. Potter would say a little bit to her.
You may think, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that I'm actually not saying very much, but there is a little message that I've got for you, which I'll say after the three ladies have been dealt with, which encapsulates my thinking about the school and the staff here. But if I can just do the same thing again with this group. These groups, they really are brilliant. If you ever have the opportunity to see them, perhaps the ladies in question might let you have a look at them before you leave today. They really are good. And the memories spill out from the pages. And as I said before, there really is no need for me to say anything. Dear Mrs. White, I will miss you because you take my maths lessons. See, it's not just the trips out there, is it?
Didn't say how we will miss it.
Dear Mrs. White, I am sorry that you are leaving because you are one of the best teachers I've known at this school. And you took us to Chester Zoo for a day out. I bought an ice cream. One of the parrots said, "What's your name then?" And you said, "I'm Teacher White." And the parrot said, "Who's that with you then?" And we said, "That's Teacher Smith." Then we got on the bus and came back to school again to go home for another night. Lots of love. And the remark I made about these school trips, I mean, you don't have to go to Orlando or the Winter Palace in Leningrad. You only have to go to somewhere in South Cheshire, and the trips are so enjoyable. Dear Mrs. White, do you have to leave? You've been with us so long. Here's a few things for you to do. I love it. You won't be able to see this very well, but there's a picture there which depicts the 4 things that Mrs. White might like to do in her retirement. Bungee jumping. If you're watching the television yesterday or the day before, you'll understand the word gymnastics. And I can just picture Mrs. White trampolining, and this nice young person suggests that she might also like to indulge in scuba diving. The message here is quite clear to me. It's not just that a favourite teacher is retiring. It's that favourite teacher was a very capable lady and able to turn her hand to anything. It is with great pleasure that I meet with this again.
Mrs. White more than we know at the moment. She has been the most consistent and reliable and dependable teacher, and I have always known as soon as I put a child in her class that child is going to have the very best teaching that we can give. And I can't say better than that, really. Now, I do believe that somewhere in the room is Mrs. Gould. Not yet. Is Miss Burns here? Oh, we'll put that on hold for a moment then. Throw the script away. We also have put pennies, and 10p's and 5's and everything else together, and we have bought something for Mrs. White. And I know that she will open it and show it to you. Would you like to put the blue? Oh, you've worked out what it is, haven't you? Some of you will know that for many years, Mrs. White, apart from all the other things she did, she was the social secretary for the PTA, Parent Teachers Association. Oh, and I have so many memories of, oh, I can't tell you all. I might tell the adults later, but it's not the children. Okay, I'll tell the adults later. Some of the things. But Miss Burns and Mrs. Gill, they have something they would like to say and present on behalf of the PTA.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Say a very big thank you to all of you, children, parents, special visitors, Mr. Roy, members of staff, and of course Ms. Cotter, as well as the reading at the same time as myself. 22 years seems a long time. Lots of things have happened in 22 years. It's just gone like a flash though, really. Mostly very, very enjoyable. Lots of really, really lovely memories. These two gifts mean a great deal to me. Actually, I saw this picture being painted painted. Children who are in my class now will probably remember that we went to see where Nantwich Castle had once stood, and we came down the little cobble path, and then we faced the Queen's Aid House, and I saw somebody actually painting this. And I was so absolutely thrilled to see this painting when I opened it, because it's just the very, very thing I want, and it will hang in our newly decorated room. Always bring memories of the Wyche. I have taught two brothers, one last year and one this year. And when the younger boy was coming into my class, his brother said, "You'll be all right, but you'll do a lot of history." Mrs. White likes talking about when she was a little girl. So I do. Now, the figure is a cold pork figure. I longed to have one of those. I had a quick look as I opened it, and it's got a special name. It's called Karen, and it's specially made for the year 1996. So again, very, very special memories. Regarding the PTA, well, I wouldn't know where to start. I think I'll have to write a book. But I do remember a very special 1960s evening at Rhineleys a number of years ago. Mr. Roy was looking particularly dapper on that occasion, but then he was forced to the boys' toilet to plug a leak, and he came out looking rather less dapper, because after you dry off during the evening, you never look quite the same. Thank you very, very much.
Who do we come to now? Do you know, I've had the same thought twice in the last 2 weeks. The first time I had it was on Sports Day when I saw Mrs. Seiver doing the forward row. The second time was in the staff versus school rounders match yesterday, when Mrs. Seiver went round the rounders pitch like a Williams in 5th gear, smoke and cinders flying, and I thought, this lady is retiring in 2 days' time. Can't believe it. But like everything else that she does, Mrs. Seiver puts her heart and her soul and her whole life into it. I can't believe that she won't be here next year. And I don't know how we're going to cope without her. The number of things Mrs. Seiver has done in this school. You will know she was head of infant department for many years. Then she became the senior teacher of the whole school. She looks after all the lost property. She looks after all the children when there's little upsets in their homes and in their houses. She looks after, well, the religious education you've looked after, and in your time, I know you've done the maths, you've done the English, you've done the reading, you've done it all. I don't know how we'll manage without her, but we'll have to. Put your hands up, this again, parents as well, if you were ever in Mrs. C's. I feel as though I've been in Mrs. Seiver's class. All right, put your hands down. Were you ever in Mrs. Seiver's class, Mr. Parker?
gem of a book, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm just going to read you a couple of little extracts, very nearly taken at random, and once again you'll find they encapsulate the feeling of thanks and sadness that Mrs. Seiver's leaving. Well, I do urge you, if you can, do have a read, because they are absolutely gorgeous. Dear Mrs. Seiver, I liked it when we did about skeletons. I hope you have a nice time when you retire. I hope you have a very, very nice time. You will be sitting with your feet up. Mr. Seiver doing all the work. Was that what's called an ironic laugh? I bet you will miss your school dinners. You can watch the football. Good luck. Full of happy memories of trips out. Dear Mrs. Seiver, thank you for all the things you have done. I hope you will remember all of us and not forget the time when we went to the coal mine and your earring made me smile. No doubt there's a hidden message in it, I'm not sure what it is. Simple ones, dear Mrs. Seiver, we will miss you a lot. Lots of love. And I'm sure that's a sentiment that we could all quite happily share. An abbreviated letter, and you take us on brilliant trips all over Cheshire and many other places. Happy memories everywhere you look in this book. To Mrs. Seiver, I'll miss you and your voice. You have a heart of gold, and I know you'll go paragliding with your friends.
Boys and girls, don't sit down, please. Boys and girls, we asked one or two people what we thought Mrs. Seiver would like as a leaving present. We asked Mr. Seiver, but we thought a spare wheel for the Land Rover probably wasn't appropriate. So in the end, we think we've got just what Mrs. Seiver would like for all those balmy sunny days in the garden. We're not going to bring all of it in, but we'll bring most of it.
Well, this morning when I got up, I felt just like Kitty, and you know what she said, don't you? What did she say? I don't want to. But I do want to, really. And just for a minute, not to have fun, I want to say something very serious. Now, on a Friday afternoon in school, we have a new thing that sometimes we do. I wonder if anybody can tell me what it is. David? No? Yes, sort of, but what's the proper word? Carl? You've got it. Privilege time. And I just want to say that it's been a very great privilege indeed. I've had a lot of years of having a very big privilege of being in this school and teaching you all, and a lot of the mums and dads as well. So a very big thank you for giving me my privilege time. Thank you very much indeed. with, and it came to thousands of people. So I had an idea, and I hope you like it. So I've got a little present for everybody here. And I do hope that you'll be able to see what's going to happen to these things. They look a bit funny and they don't look very exciting yet, but they will be. Mr. Potter, could you help to get my sack out, please? These don't look very exciting in this pot. Do you know what they are? Bulbs, yes, they're mostly daffodils in here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask Mr. Roy if I can come back in the autumn and we can have a planting day. And there will be enough daffodils for everybody to come out with me and plant one, all where Mr. Beadle's been digging and painting the fence around the school. Then when you walk past, they'll grow like you do, and you'll always be able to see them. So I do hope you think that's nice, but I've got another present as well.
Oh my God.
Where's my money? This is how they'll turn out, like on these pictures, you see. Don't look very exciting now, but they will be.
You're around the school just to see what.
Now there was another thing. Do you know the teachers have a lot of staff meetings, usually on a Tuesday. And even if it's bad weather, it gets very, very hot in the staff room. And I'm really concerned about all this hot air that goes around. Perhaps Mr. Roy would like to open this one.
Look, fans! Keep us warm in the staff room.
Children, just be very quiet for a minute. Now, Mrs. White bought you a beautiful silver trophy, didn't she, last week? And I was most concerned that sitting at the back I wasn't able to see it properly. So I bought something for all of you you can put it on. And when it's not a trophy day, I know Mr. Roy likes to have lovely plants in assembly, so you'll be able to put your plants and trophies on this if I can get it.
Oh, yes.
Mrs. White's silver trophy. This very morning. I've just used it for the last time and washed it out, and I'm going to give this personally to Mr. Beadle because
And we're very grateful for all those lovely things.
Thank you very much.
Now we have some of our very youngest children, and they're going to be very brave, and they're going to bring something else out for each of our special people this morning. Will you sit very quietly while they do it? Lovely.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you probably thought so far I've been uncharacteristically brief in my remarks, and I've contained myself into some article quotations from the reddish books. What I thought was I ought to make a general comment about these three ladies in particular, but what I'm about to say, really you could say about every teacher in this school, and you could say about the whole staff in this school, because I think this school is a little bit different to other schools, and I'm going to tell you why. You all know, boys and girls, the word proud. Well, I'm proud to be here. I'm proud that my father came to this school. I'm proud that I came to this school, and that also my son came to this school. And if he'd have been here, he'd have put his hand up when asked was he in Mrs. Seiver or Mrs. White's class. And I'm not just proud of this school because I have to come here and I love the place. This school is slightly different to other schools, and some of you may not understand what I'm about to say, but when you get older you will. And that is the school has to teach things like maths, English, science, geography, astronomy, all the things that are required to be taught by the national curriculum. But there are things in the national curriculum that everybody understands. The school also teaches things which are not in the national curriculum. And that's why this is a special school, I think. I'm going to tell you a little story. You'll perhaps understand what I'm getting at. This school teaches children how valuable they are. And you know that something that's valuable is worth a lot of money. Well, children are worth far more than any amount of money that you can consider. And this school looks after children for what they are, very valuable young people. And more importantly than that, it teaches those children to value each other. Now then, last week you had 3 sports days. I think you had the nursery out on the Monday, and I think Key Stage 1 on the Tuesday, and Key Stage 2 on the Wednesday. And I could only come on one day, and I watched for about half an hour, whatever, of Key Stage 2. You know the beanbag race? Of course you do. One down the track, beanbag, in the hoop, another beanbag, and so on. Well, there were a lot of beanbag races, and in one of the races there was a cheer that was much bigger than the other beanbag races, because one race was slightly different to all the others. And you weren't cheering because blue team had won or green team or something like that. A lot of young children were cheering because Jessica came second. And at that moment, I realised why this isn't a good school, this isn't an excellent school, this is a brilliant school. And it's brilliant because of people like this, and him, and them. And I'm very pleased to be your Chairman of Governors. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very busy man, and we appreciate all that he has said to us this morning, and we know that those words come from the heart. Thank you all our visitors who have come this morning to make this a very memorable day. And we mustn't forget that this day is for Mrs. Jenks, Mrs. White and Mrs. Seiver. We are proud as well, Mr. Potter, as the way children can do maths in this school. So we're going to do a quick song. I hope we get the answer right. 13 years, Mrs. Jenks would miss off the half because we'd have to put it decimal these days. 13 years. 22, Mrs. White. Do you know how many years it is, Mrs. Stevens? 27. So we have 27 and 22 and 13. I'm going to choose my respondent carefully. Matthew, what do you make it? 42? No. I think he's got his units right. Are you sure you got the tens right? Do you want another try, Matthew?
62.
62?
Oh, you know, he said that.
Let's ask the adults what they make it. 62? Yeah? 62? That's what I made it. 62 years. And they still play rounders. Well now, boys and girls, there is now another ordeal for these lovely people to go through in the staff room. And you are going to have an extra little playtime before dinner. But before you go out, we're going to make a little bit of a gap down this side. And when special people leave us, we give them a really big clap, and we've got the today would like to accompany them into the staff room. There is something waiting for you, and I don't think you will be disappointed. Boys and girls.
Cherry of David's Law. She perched there like a wicked black parrot and sniffed at the black smell of the baking. Look, she was sniffing. Can you see it there? That's supposed to be smelling horrible. Usually witches, I just settle for a bright, dull afternoon with some baking, and the witch has to come and perch on a tree out there.
Together.
Right, let's have a big cheer for Mrs. Seiver.